Story 1. Complete lack of interest in anything or anyone except a single narrow topic. I become hyper-focused on that topic to the point of emotional turmoil. Story 2. The only thing I want to do is go to bed. Not because I want to be cozy and rest. I want to be unconscious and unaware of the world. I am sorry you are feeling this way. If you are thinking about harming yourself or feel you may be in danger, please contact your local emergency services right now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact your local emergency number or a crisis hotline in your area. You are not alone. Consider reaching out to someone you trust or a mental health professional for support. Story 3. When I was 46, I had a major depressive episode. It took me several months to recognize it, but my primary warning signs are withdrawing from social activities, decreased physical activity, repetitive negative thoughts, and increased alcohol consumption. I am 70 now and have not had a major episode since. When I notice the signs, I take action. I have a support system I trust to keep me on track. Story 4. I need to go to bed as soon as possible in the evening. Story 5. The house is getting messy and falling out of its routine, making it difficult to keep it tidy and maintain hygiene. Story 6. If I stop showering, washing my hair, and brushing my teeth, my skin suffers a lot. Story 7. Unwanted thoughts, such as imagining putting a cigarette out on myself or driving into something. Story 8. I cannot cope with the smallest setbacks. It is like my stress cup is always full to the brim, and the tiniest extra drop makes it spill over. Story 9. My first sign is dirty dishes left in the sink, followed by making excuses not to leave the house. It escalates from there. It's important to identify your early signs so you can break the cycle. Call your therapist, attend a support group, and see your doctor. Story 10. Most food tastes and textures start to irritate and then cause nausea. I start sleeping on the couch at night and avoid my bed entirely. I become hyper-focused on non-urgent, irrelevant tasks. I realize I am looking people in the eyes but have not heard anything they have said to me. I avoid things that are good for me, like walking and meditating, because I feel I have not completed enough tasks or socialized with enough people to deserve time to myself. I sometimes develop an aversion to drinking water and seek out alcohol for its mouthfeel and relative density. Luckily, I now notice these patterns earlier. Before I recognize them, I could lose days, weeks, or months to these issues. Story 11. My anger spikes at every little inconvenience. I do not care to do basic health maintenance such as brushing my teeth, brushing my hair, or showering. I either sleep 20 hours a day or stay awake for days, cleaning and obsessing over every wrong thing in my room. I do not want to wear sweatshirts at all, even though I love being cozy. I start doubting my relationship, thinking he is only with me for my body or for personal gain. I get very paranoid. I start having flashbacks and nightmares from post-traumatic stress disorder that usually end in seizures. I do not care for any of my safe foods, such as mac and cheese, chicken tenders, honey and bacon beans, or lasagna. Even playing with my dog and rabbit does not bring me any joy. I get the urge to go on a 10-mile run even though I have asthma. Story 12. Poor hygiene. No longer listens to music. Loss of appetite. No longer replies to text messages. Feels constantly overwhelmed. Story 13. I get mouth ulcers, also called canker sores. It is really strange, but it seems to happen every time. Story 14. I have started forgetting things all over the place. For example, I might take my hat and water bottle to the gym, then leave and forget where I placed them, not noticing until I get home. My mind becomes jumbled, and it is hard to stay focused on one task. Story 15. I have violent, upsetting daydreams. I experience intrusive, disturbing thoughts that I turn into stories in my head and replay. It's as if my brain is trying to make me as upset as possible, and I cannot stop the spiral. Story 16. I wake with dread and a lack of direction. My bedroom becomes messy. It is getting harder to get out of bed and stay up. I was doing really well until about a month ago, and now I am lucky if I spend a couple of hours a day out of bed. I hate it. It feels like I have put myself in a prison cell. Story 17. Isolation. Pain in the neck, shoulders, and stomach. Dramatic fluctuations in appetite, from eating my feelings to forgetting to eat altogether. Story 18. Sudden, inexplicable negative emotions. Irritability, emotional turbulence, poor personal hygiene, exhaustion, reduced social interaction, thoughts of harming myself or ending my life. Story 19. I am ruminating. I cannot get out of a thought spiral about whatever is causing my anxiety. I tend to obsess over it. Story 20. I have started doing small things that give me cheap hits of dopamine, such as shopping, snacking, and drinking, and playing phone games. I am doing less of my usual activities and acting more impulsively to get that dopamine fix. Story 21. I am craving unhealthy foods, especially candy and cookies. I am spiraling into negative thoughts. I feel like showering all the time. I do not want to go to bed, and in the mornings I do not want to get out of bed. I feel tired almost all morning. I no longer feel confident. Story 22. I can't handle loud noises, slow motion, and bright colors. Feels irritating. Story 23. My patience goes down the drain over little things that give me no reason to be angry. I also become very sexually aroused. I have to masturbate 4 to 5 times a day just to get the poison out. I currently take Lexapro and Wellbutrin, so I assume the increased libido comes from forgetting to take my medication. Laughing out loud. Story 24. My first warning sign is that I become clumsier. I notice myself bumping into more things or dropping items. I can usually get ahead of it with rest and relaxation. Story 25. My body feels swollen and I am tired. I feel swollen in my face, neck, upper body, and torso. Then I start thinking how hideous I look. I am already a bit of a hermit, but I pull away from everyone when I feel this way. Then I start thinking I am a burden to others, that people are disgusted by my appearance and by how much space I take up. It takes me a while to realize I am getting worse again, sometimes a month or more. I also become very irritable. I think it pushes people away, including those I live with, so I can isolate myself despite having a family. I hate it. Story 26. Motivation disappears. Sleep no longer feels restful. Music loses its joy, and nothing I do brings satisfaction. Story 27. I feel tired and irritable and want to sleep all the time. I get angry easily. Story 28. I isolate myself a lot when I am depressed. That is usually the biggest sign for me. Story 29. Not eating well, not taking care of yourself, not taking an interest in activities that used to bring joy to your life, not caring about your appearance, repetitive negative thoughts, and not exercising or getting fresh air. Story 30. With all these symptoms, I think my mental health has declined dramatically. What are the first steps? It has been so long since I have had symptoms like this that I cannot pinpoint what in my life caused them. Story 31. I doom scroll even when I have only 5 seconds of free time and cannot brush my teeth or wash my face before bed. Story 32. Lack of interest in and enjoyment of things that used to be important and pleasant. Less patience in all kinds of situations, as if everything were done to spite you. Emotional instability, including bouts of intense, irrational rage and episodes of sudden euphoria. Story 33. Killing myself looks more appealing. I have chronic depression, so suicidal ideation is normal for me. It is an intrusive thought that I can wave away with nah. When it is bad, I cling to my reasons for living. Mom is still around and she already lost dad to cancer. My 2 older brothers would be destroyed, wondering what they did wrong. The dogs would not know where I went. They would wait by the door or sleep in my room, wondering when I am coming home. The cat I raised from 6 weeks old would lose their person. This becomes my daily mantra. Even when I feel so miserable that I wonder what I did to deserve this, I ruminate on every way I am a useless failure and think I should just die so less oxygen would be wasted on me. Then I repeat the mantra ad infinitum. Usually my brain stops the doom cycle after a few days, but sometimes episodes last weeks and it sucks. If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number or go to the nearest emergency department now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are outside the United States, contact your local emergency services or crisis line in your country. I can help find numbers for your location if you want. I can also further edit this text to make it less triggering for speech synthesis. Story 34. I start talking aloud in public. I will have a full conversation to try to avoid panicking. My coworkers always ask if I am talking to myself again. I usually joke that I am talking to a cup of coffee, and they laugh and go about their business. Story 35. My personal hygiene slips. I stop cleaning and sleep a lot. Story 36. I no longer care about the things I love most. I sleep all the time and do not shower as much. I am usually obsessive about cleanliness. Story 37. I lose motivation to do anything, and I tend to eat more. Story 38. I default to low investment, low reward activities. Everything else gets a no. I don't want to. Story 39. I'll suddenly notice I haven't listened to music in weeks. Story 40. I cry in public places. I usually do not realize how bad it is until I notice. Thankfully, this is not common. Story 41. My sense of humor evaporates and I become very literal. I withdraw and stop answering text messages. I may cry unexpectedly or feel the urge to cry. My digestion worsens because I stop cooking and eat fast food. Sleep is disturbed by poor digestion or doom scrolling. My work partner and I discussed this before our busy season. Recognizing signs that the other was becoming too stressed helped us look out for each other. Sometimes we sent each other home to rest. Story 42. I feel only doom and anxiety. Nothing feels enjoyable. Everything is boring. Story 43. Overwhelmed by everything, anxiety kicks in. My stomach feels off. I do not want to see anyone or do anything, and then everything just goes blurry. It is awful. Story 44. I get fixated on money and experience severe anxiety about savings, investing, bills, and the needs of my children. Story 45. I find myself becoming more irritable and snapping at little things. It's a clear sign that something isn't right mentally for me. Story 46. People around you can influence your mental health. Maybe you're in the wrong party. Story 47. I find myself returning to a specific solitaire game I started playing during depressive episodes because it is low stakes and requires just enough brain power to keep me from shutting down completely. I stop caring about things, which makes decisions nearly impossible. I become mentally slower in general. Thinking is exhausting. My diet collapses. I stop caring whether I eat, and when I do it is usually pre-made food or plain junk. By the time I reach this point, it is usually my last chance to course correct before a full crisis. Story 48. I am not listening to myself. I think I should not do it that way, it seems precarious. Then I do it anyway. Story 49. When I do not set up my coffee maker the night before for the morning, it sounds far-fetched, but it is my sign. Story 50. Most of what has already been said applies, but the most annoying issue is stress eating because I then have to diet and exercise more to get rid of it, laughing out loud. Story 51. I get into realistic painting, specifically copying photographs, as opposed to the more free, feeling-fueled paintings I do when I am okay. I think it is a way to contain myself by focusing on minuscule details and following patterns that are already given, and I do not have to invent them myself. Story 52. I have less interest in activities I usually enjoy. I feel stuck in a rut. Story 53. I start to dissociate and feel like I am living in a dream or watching my life from a third-person perspective. Story 54. Boredom is usually the first thing I notice. Nothing seems to be enough. Then turbulent thoughts and intense negativity follow. In more severe cases, I go days without showering and spend long periods in seclusion. If I try to sum it up, in those moments I feel like no one in the world hates me more than I hate myself. Story 55. I realize I'm falling into the hole again when I stop cleaning my room. Clothes start piling up. The bathroom starts looking like a dirty public restroom. I become irritated easily. I avoid my friends and family. I start masturbating excessively. I neglect showers, brushing my teeth, or clipping my nails. I realize I haven't done the things I like in a long time. I also take too long to get out of bed. When I'm okay, it still takes about 30 minutes minimum, but sometimes it reaches the point of waking up and spending more than 2 hours in bed before getting up. I'm pretty used to it. Life feels like constantly trying to avoid falling into that hole and going on autopilot. It's so stressful, laughing out loud. Story 56. Anger arises from almost nothing and is directed at nothing. It is such a reliable symptom of my mild depression that I can find a project, exercise, or hide until the episode passes. Story 57. When my mental health declines, I stop caring about things I normally value, even those I cared about most. Story 58. Apathy. Nothing is interesting anymore. No motivation at all. Everything is gray and blank. Not even sadness, only emptiness. Story 59. I have stopped enjoying the little things that usually make me happy. Story 60. Before a major episode, I notice emotional numbness. I watch a beloved movie and feel little to nothing. I go through the motions and realize I do not care about exercising, cleaning, food, or sex. Life becomes a complete performance. It is different from the hopelessness and darkness that comes next, but it serves as a marker for me. When I notice this happening now, I am strict about self-care to try to prevent further decline. Story 61. My left eyebrow is twitching, which means the stress is getting to me. Story 62. I feel so sad that I want to cry, but no tears come. I am mean to myself and put myself down. I feel that I deserve everything that happens to me. Story 63. I had severe premenstrual dysphoric disorder caused by an intrauterine device. I could always tell when it started because I would see myself in the mirror and feel incredibly uncomfortable. Every month without fail. Sometimes I could not find a single thing I liked about my appearance. Sometimes I just felt really ugly, and sometimes I did not recognize my own face. Story 64. I cannot decide, though I am usually good at it. Story 65. I get bouts of what is probably a form of depression. It has improved with age and with the knowledge that there is usually a reason, and that it eventually ends. The most noticeable signs are melancholy, hopelessness, being quick to anger, feelings of impending doom, my thoughts becoming louder and more chaotic than usual, occasional suicidal thoughts, not that I want to die, but intrusive thoughts, and loss of joy in things I usually love. Story 66. When I start to feel very lonely and tired of society. Story 67. Can't get myself to cook even simple things. Then I realize I'm in a depressive episode and try to evaluate what is going on. Story 68. The urge to lie down or nap is stronger than the urge to do anything else throughout the whole day. Story 69. Isolating myself from others more than usual. Feeling overly fatigued, with no energy regardless of how much rest I get. Spending more time in bed. Nothing sparks any interest or joy. Showering becomes difficult. Some or all of these are what I usually notice when I'm starting to slip into depression. Sadly, I'm going through it right now, but hopefully it will go away soon. Story 70. If I am not actively recording music and creating sonic landscapes. Story 71. Anxiety ramps up. It is easy to let catastrophic thinking take over. Energy drops. I notice pain more than usual. I am happy to sit in rooms with the curtains drawn during the day. Focus evaporates. Story 72. I have worked to manage my bipolar disorder for over 25 years. The signs are unmistakable. When I begin to get depressed, my diet changes. I crave unhealthy food and drugs. I stop taking care of myself. My hygiene suffers, and I do not want to work, socialize, or leave the house or my bedroom. Manic episodes usually start with going to bed and waking up 2 hours later as if I had 8 hours of sleep. Feeling ready to take on the world at midnight or 1 in the morning. My sex drive increases. I start looking online for hookups, and my thoughts and speech speed up. If I do not take my lithium immediately to get it under control, I risk auditory hallucinations. I have been on this roller coaster so long that it does not feel strange anymore. I have become skilled at managing it on my own. I keep a supply of Seroquel and lithium and am usually okay. A walk-in clinic I found a couple of years ago has been extremely helpful. The nurse practitioner there has a better grasp of how to treat people with mental health conditions than the vast majority of psychiatric doctors. I never asked her, but I get the sense she either has a mental health condition herself or has a loved one who does, because her knowledge and skill far exceed what I would expect. Story 73. I don't get warning signs. I'll be perfectly fine, and then depression will wash over me like the warm embrace of death and despair out of nowhere. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are thinking about harming yourself or are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact local emergency services or your country's crisis line. It might help to tell a trusted person how you're feeling. If you'd like, I can help find crisis resources in your area or stay with you here. Story 74. I do not want to get out of bed and tend to shut down. This started yesterday. I am trying to feel better for tomorrow, but I know deep down it will be the same as today. Story 75. My first sign is skipping showers. When I am at my best, I shower every day. But I know something is wrong when I realize it has been 2 or 3 days without one. Showering starts to feel like a chore, and I just do not want to shower. Story 76. I get irritated over every little thing. I cannot stay awake for longer than 2 hours at a time, and I cannot sleep for more than 1 hour at a time. Story 77. Disinterest in hobbies and activities that once brought you joy. Lack of energy for basic tasks. Everything feels overwhelming. Neglect of self-care such as showering and brushing your teeth. People complain about your hygiene. Significant changes in appetite over several days, with little concern for healthy eating. Disturbed sleep patterns. You may sleep too much or too little at irregular hours. A dirty room or house, rotting food, and unwashed dishes for several days. Frequent tardiness and lack of focus at work, or conversely burying yourself in work and working long hours. Your work may suffer or improve dramatically because you are spending all day working. People express concern, but you feel misunderstood or judged, so you limit interactions and isolate yourself. Increased irritability and feelings of nihilism. Possible hoarding of possessions. Engaging in addictive behaviors or substance use, such as drinking, smoking, playing loud music, using drugs, viewing pornography, overeating junk food, or doom scrolling. Persistent rumination and obsessive thoughts. You may shout or talk aloud as you replay these thoughts in your head. Was this you? Story 78. Some of the things I have noticed are more isolation, less showering, and frequent switching between apps. Story 79. My social anxiety skyrockets and I start isolating myself. My brain convinces me that everyone hates me even though I know I have people who love and care for me. People say they care in many ways, and I know they do, but it is hard to fight the bad thoughts. Everyone secretly hates me. I am a burden to everyone I love, and no one would care if I left or died. Friends invite me to things, but I convince myself I was not actually invited and that everyone would hate it if I showed up. I have been in a bit of a funk these past few weeks and have canceled plans with friends a couple of times. I forced myself to attend a birthday party but felt out of place and was constantly worried about not being friendly or social enough. It has been quite a while since these thoughts sank their claws into me, and I have not been able to shake them lately. I know they will go away eventually, but it is exhausting fighting with myself. Story 80. Unable to get off the couch. Taking on more work than required. My place looks like a pigsty. Story 81. My only experience with depression began when I lost interest in listening to music. Music is my life, but during that time it felt like noise. Everything felt too loud, even people talking. Then I lost interest in all activities and I was functioning like a robot. Intrusive thoughts followed. I felt this was the end and there was no escape. Except by ending my life. I became hyper-focused on that thought, and nothing anyone said or did helped. Luckily, I got the help I needed and recovered after a long month. Now, sometimes I feel sad and think about that episode and realize it was very different from just feeling low. It was like total darkness with no end. Depression is no joke. Story 82. I do not want to do my hobbies and just lie in bed. I start having trouble taking care of myself. Showering, brushing my teeth, and so on. This is unusual because I am normally very clean. I do not want to meet up with anyone or follow through with plans I have made. But that last one could also be due to exhaustion. Story 83. My inner monologue gets way too loud, constantly replaying debates. When someone at work says something slightly snarky but not malicious, I invent the perfect comeback during a 30-minute shower when my mind is completely focused and angry. It leads to sleep paralysis. My body falls asleep, but my mind stays stuck on that internal debate. The only escape is forcing a silent scream that eventually becomes audible and wakes the house. Story 84. I am very introspective, so I find myself dwelling on nihilistic thoughts. I procrastinate on fairly easy but important tasks, spend too much time on social media, and gradually isolate myself. I hate waking up. Story 85. Isolation and a craving to spend time alone. Not even wanting to text anyone back. A strong desire to escape to the wilderness or bush. No motivation to exercise. Impulse buying, such as purchasing whiteboards and setting up a new office because I want to be organized, then lying on the couch and not using the whiteboard. Drinking more. Story 86. I shower less often, stop brushing my teeth at night, and eat junk food compulsively. Story 87. I do my laundry but do not put it away afterward. Clean laundry left in the basket at the end of the day is one of the first signs that my mental health is deteriorating. Story 88. I do not want to move or see any light. Story 89. I start working out excessively for dopamine. When I'm happy, I tend to relax a lot more. Story 90. When I do chores, my mom's voice enters my head, screaming at me to do the chore and making me spiral. When I'm doing well, it never crosses my mind. Laughing out loud. Story 91. If I think I'm fine, I am likely not. That belief is a sign my mental health is declining. If I don't think I'm fine, I am usually okay. I try to act normal so others believe I am, which is hard and awkward. I can keep that up for months or even years. When I start thinking I am all right and do not have to put on a show, that is the depression. Everything it touches bears the brunt and chaos of mental illness. It is destructive. As long as my mental warden is active, everyone else sees me as normal, and I am just getting by as best I can. That is the safest place to be, and I know it even though I am anything but fine. Story 92. I have obsessive-compulsive disorder. When my mental health gets really bad, my compulsions worsen. For example, one compulsion is checking that I flushed the toilet after using the restroom. Normally, I walk 3 steps away, return, check that it is flushed, and say the word clean, repeating this 3 times. When my mental health deteriorates, I usually repeat it 7 times, then take a photo on my phone to refer to, and I ask my husband to double-check if he is home, because I sometimes worry I am imagining that it is flushed when it is not. Story 93. I stop doing all my self-care activities and hobbies. You know I am stressed when I vegetate in front of the television all night. Story 94. I suddenly lose my appetite. I don't feel hungry at all for a week, sometimes longer, and often forget to eat because I don't get hunger cues. Sometimes it takes me a day or 2 before I realize I haven't eaten anything. My countermeasure is setting alarms for reasonable meal times and forcing myself to eat. When that doesn't work, I rely on smoothies with vitamins and protein. Story 95. If you have a history of depression, psychedelic therapy has put me at age 45 in the best mental health of my life. My anxiety is essentially gone. I feel free to do whatever I want, and I have the willpower to do it. Guided high doses of 3,4-methylenedioxymethamphetamine followed by psilocybin, also known as psychedelic mushrooms, were the combination that turned my life around. There is substantial research supporting this. Story 96. An unreasonable amount of justified or unjustified anger, like I have been feeling for the last few days. Story 97. I don't see it coming. That's my problem. One day, I'm suddenly very mean to my wife. Then I realize I'm being a jackass and start kissing up to cover it. Story 98. I have stopped doing my hobbies and just sit on the couch. Going to the shower feels like climbing Mount Everest. Story 99. My houseplants are my canary in the coal mine. When they start to turn yellow or die, I know I have begun to neglect them and myself because I enjoy caring for them when my mental health is good. Story 100. I work in the emergency room, and I love talking to and spending time with my patients at the bedside. When I lose the desire to care for, comfort, and listen to others, it tells me I need to care for and listen to myself a little more. Story 101. I started thinking about her again. After she messaged me 5 years later, I felt off. But so be it. I knew it was worth everything. Story 102. A few songs and sights move me to tears. I know I am on the decline when they make me cry. Story 103. I have been emotionally distancing myself from my loved ones. Story 104. I get a small patch of eczema that flares up on one eyelid and nowhere else on my body. It took years to figure out that it flared up when I was at my lowest mentally. Story 105. I start to feel hopeless and lose interest in going out. Story 106. When hypochondria flares up, I have no patience for anyone, especially strangers who act inconsiderately or selfishly. If this does not improve after a few weeks, I know I am at risk of sliding into a depressive episode. Story 107. I keep replaying the conversation I had with my ex-girlfriend when she told me she was cheating on me and leaving me for him. I go over every detail in my head and get angry because I didn't stand up and let her walk all over me. Story 108. The first sign that my mental health is slipping is when I catch myself arguing with my own thoughts and somehow losing every round. Story 109. It depends on the mood swing. I have bipolar 2 disorder. If I am coming up to a hypomanic episode, I get irrationally angry. Sometimes I feel euphoric during hypomania, but the main sign for me is rage. Once that starts, I know the crash will come not long after. The rage is awful, but the crash is always worse. The depressive episodes hit much harder and last longer. I feel apathetic. I can go from feeling great to feeling like I have never experienced happiness and never will again. The apathy sneaks up on me, and it is always the first sign. It can last for weeks, sometimes months, if my medications are not working well enough. I also have borderline personality disorder, so it is always a guessing game of whether it is the borderline personality disorder or the bipolar disorder. The borderline personality disorder swings can be the most detrimental. They happen so fast and sometimes without a trigger. I have hurt a lot of people. No amount of apologies after the fact can make that better. I carry a lot of guilt for it. My coping skills mostly work. It depends on stress levels or whether I have an escape route to remove myself from the situation. Story 110. When my therapist starts telling me there are voluntary places the Department of Veterans Affairs will cover. Story 111. I have been sleeping a lot. When I am mentally well, I make an effort to maintain a routine. If I sleep later than usual or stay up late, I know I am retreating into depression. I either eat nothing or eat everything. Story 112. I experienced negativity, depression, and a loss of hope when nothing was going right and luck was against me. One problem after another, my life had taken a back seat. Story 113. The music that has been playing in my head since my earliest memory, just random songs, goes away. I do not hum or sing anymore. I withdraw from almost everyone and avoid the world. My best friend usually notices and pulls me back to the real world. I currently have so much music. Story 114. Gaining weight. Not bathing as often. Ordering food instead of cooking. Drinking alcohol or smoking marijuana much more. Story 115. I have noticed that I stop taking care of my beard when my depression begins to kick in. Story 116. I started watching horror movies. Once I became so depressed that I went manic. The only thing I watched on repeat was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I played it as background noise while I tried to fall asleep. This went on for 2 months. Story 117. I am bipolar. When I change my medication too much, everyone begins to irritate me. I know that, rationally, it is impossible for every person to irritate me. That tells me it is time to schedule a psychiatric appointment and adjust the medication. Story 118. I overeat some days and undereat others. I drink too much coffee and I am tired all the time. Story 119. When I start losing interest in talking and laughing with my friends. Story 120. Losing interest in personal hygiene and basic tasks like getting groceries or light household cleaning. Story 121. Loss of sleep and poor sleep patterns. Feeling drained and sick often. Story 122. Isolation, restlessness, insomnia, and no appetite. It's all downhill from there if I don't get help or adjust my medications. Edit to add. I guess this is what I look out for when I'm getting worse. After reading the comments, I realize I have not been able to keep up with personal hygiene or chores very well lately. I should probably seek help now, laughing out loud. Thanks for the insight. I hope today is a better day for those reading this. Story 123. Personally, I usually get up and go as soon as I wake up. Story 124. I have been in the same depressive episode for at least 20 years. Story 125. My sleep has become very poor. I wake constantly during the night and have disturbed sleep for no reason. 1 or 2 bad nights are okay. But after 3 or 4, I know a depressive episode is beginning. By the 4th morning, the clouds have appeared with no sign of lifting. There is not much I can do. I ride the wave and wait for the clouds to lift. Today might feel like a bad day, but that is okay. There is always tomorrow. The cycle repeats until the clouds lift and I feel light and sunny again. Story 126. I cannot control my thoughts. They bounce around. I close all the blinds and curtains so no one can see me. I only shower once or twice a week. I eat less and start drinking. I pace and take anxiety medication, lorazepam, until I fall asleep. I ignore my wife and our animals. I question whether I will ever get out of this. Story 127. Living alone, I sometimes talk to myself, sing, narrate my dinner prep like I'm on a cooking show, and hold imaginary conversations. When I'm really low, I stop doing all of that. It's like advanced isolation, not even engaging socially with myself. Story 128. Hypersexual behavior followed by inconsistency with chores and self-maintenance, then low energy, guilt, intrusive thoughts, and endgame planning. I am pretty good now because once I reach stage 3 or stage 4, I realize I have missed some medications, need sleep and a meal, and must use my coping mechanisms. Story 129. I experience intrusive thoughts and begin talking to myself more, feeling dissociated from real life. Story 130. The first time I noticed it was after I had completed my suicide plan. Now the suicidal thoughts have returned. Better late than never, I guess. I am sorry you are feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number immediately. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. In the United Kingdom, contact Samaritans at 116 123. If you are elsewhere, please call your local emergency services or find a crisis line in your country. Consider contacting a trusted friend, family member, or a mental health professional now. If you want, I can stay with you and listen and help find resources. Story 131. I skip morning runs, drink a lot of soda, and eat pastries. Story 132. I completely understand. I am a psychiatric nurse, so we see this all the time. Story 133. I start to show an interest in true crime. I never listen to or watch it when I am fine, but as soon as a depressive episode is on the horizon, I put something on. It reminds me to be kinder to myself and to others and not to take my irritation with people and the world too seriously. Yes, things suck, but my suffering is not going to make things better for anyone. Story 134. Nothing feels good. Activities, food, and sleep all feel flat. Even anxiety is present and does not make me feel less anxious. That would be too helpful. Story 135. Pulling away from interacting with people and neglecting to maintain my appearance. Story 136. I have lost interest in music, food, and sex, which are usually my 3 favorite things. Story 137. Constantly feeling tired, unmotivated, and procrastinating everything. Story 138. I panic about very unlikely things. That's not a headache, it's a tumor. I'm gonna get fired. Story 139. I smoke a lot of marijuana. I eat a lot of junk food. My room looks like it was hit by a tornado. I am often late for work. I distance myself from friends and family. Story 140. I stop engaging in activities I usually enjoy. The first thing I notice is a loss of interest in music. During better periods, I experience music completely differently. Story 141. Intrusive thoughts, lack of motivation, and the house gradually becoming a mess. But I swear if I just exercise a bit, it helps so much. If I slack off, that is when it starts to build back up, and I generally do not handle life as well. If nothing has worked for you, please try a short walk or run, ride a bike, swim a few laps, or go for a hike. Get outside. It does not have to be anything crazy or expensive. Once I have done that, I can usually get the house back in shape, and then I am golden for a while. Story 142. At first I get very happy and manic. I feel like I love life. I can do anything and everything. I think about starting a new business, getting a new car, and being there for everyone because I am so happy. Then I crash, falling deep into a hole of darkness. Cannot get out of bed. Nothing makes me happy. I cry a lot and have many suicidal thoughts. I avoid people and tell them to leave me alone. I stop showering and wear the same clothes. It is awful. This happens about 4 times a year like clockwork, almost perfectly aligned with the solstices and equinoxes. I hate it. Story 143. I have been losing interest in things, especially hobbies. I love playing video games, but when things start getting bad, I completely lose all motivation to pick up a controller or find anything I want to play. Story 144. Usually I experience an increase in irritability. I feel like the smallest things might set me off. Last time I made a female friend on Discord and found out how one-sided it was. The moment I realized I was growing bitter, I knew I was in it for the long haul. Story 145. Smoking goes into overdrive. It is the first pillar that crumbles. Story 146. I feel irritated, find it hard to focus even on things I like, and lack motivation. After having depression 4 years ago, I started taking action immediately. I forced myself to exercise more and to sleep more and to sleep well. I am over 45 and worry about my health. More often, I am generally fine, but when you are 20 you can be run over by something and be fine the next day. Now it takes longer to recover. I do not drink often, maybe 1 beer a week, but I have noticed that when I am low I crave sugar and beer. I know sugar is very bad as well. Story 147. I stare into nothing and freeze while doing simple tasks such as putting on my shoes. I'm thinking about whatever is overwhelming me. I feel hopeless. Getting up, eating, and getting ready for the day feel like unbearable chores. Story 148. I stop taking care of myself and my hygiene deteriorates. I sleep much more and my eating habits get out of control. I also start abusing alcohol. Story 149. The first sign is feeling good, then realizing I feel good and asking whether I should. Hello, post-traumatic stress disorder. Thank you for coming. Let's start by reminding ourselves we are not worthy of feeling good. Now I notice that. Story 150. Isolation, withdrawing from the outside world and ceasing communication for a while. Intrusive thoughts. Story 151. This usually happens when I oversleep or start obsessing about past mistakes. Story 152. I skip showers and washing off my makeup when I am struggling with my mental health. When I am in good mental health, these personal care tasks are very important to me. Story 153. I cannot feel happy. I cannot find a reason to smile or laugh. I am isolating myself. Story 154. The person is isolating more, drinking alcohol and showering only 1 to 2 times per week. Story 155. I struggle to keep my personal space clean. It bothers me, but it becomes extremely hard to fix and causes mental exhaustion. I can get a proper 8 hours of sleep, but I still feel tired when I wake up and throughout the day, and I want to sleep much earlier than I should after work. Story 156. The truth is that most people do not notice when they begin to lose it. Often the people you know and trust are the first to notice and point it out. Story 157. Constant mental fatigue, such as brain fog and difficulty concentrating. Story 158. I am not brushing my teeth, cleaning, moving, or socializing. Story 159. Lying in bed longer or sleeping more than 8 to 10 hours. Eating less and not feeling like preparing food. Seeing friends and family less often. Getting into arguments with them more easily. Crying more often than usual. Hobbies feeling boring or not wanting to do them. Intrusive thoughts. For example, you look through a grocery store weekly deals and it turns into thoughts that you are too poor to buy food and should go on a diet. I used to smoke cigarettes and did so more often when I was in a bad state. For example, working in retail made me want to end everything. Doing things you would not normally do that have negative consequences. For example, I smoked marijuana, which led to being with the wrong person for the first time, all within 9 months of unemployment. Thoughts of ending it all. Story 161. I go to bed very early. 2. My room becomes a mess and gets dirty quickly. 3. I spend a lot of money. Story 161. There is a complete lack of self-care and maladaptive daydreaming is worsening. Story 162. I get much more anxious about leaving my apartment. That kind of avoidance is a barometer for me. Story 163. I have been obsessively listening to Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. Story 164. When my stress levels are too high, my face begins twitching, only on the left cheek. This is new after years of repressing my feelings. I thought I was dying, but reducing my screen time and exposure to current events has nearly stopped it. Story 165. This is a random one, but I put off shaving until I am uncomfortable. I am sure there are other personal maintenance tasks that go by the wayside, but that is the one I notice. The good news is I can usually jumpstart feeling better by shaving. Story 166. I don't struggle personally. However, I know a man who is currently having a rough time. Lately, I have noticed that he barely leaves his house. He did not get out of bed until 6 p.m. today. He is not taking care of himself. He does not text or call. He ignores everyone. He is very quiet, and there is a look in his eyes. I took dinner to him this evening, and he barely ate. He tried to smile and act like it was a normal day, but he is in bad shape. I truly dislike seeing people fall apart because life has broken them. Story 167. I usually buy things I do not need or drink or smoke weed more often. Story 168. I want to draw, play video games, go on walks, and play board games with my family, but I stop feeling any joy or excitement when I do. I end up in a strange state where I feel restless, and nothing relieves that restlessness. I think this odd state is caused by my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression being at odds with each other. Story 169. Stop eating, cleaning, or doing anything that requires effort. Story 170. I go to sleep as soon as I get home from work and do not wake until the last possible moment to arrive on time. Story 171. Withdrawing from talking to my friends. Spending all day in bed and doing nothing. I am quick to anger. Story 172. My room gets very cluttered, and my step count decreases. I also notice I have less patience with others and boss my dog around. Laughing out loud. Story 173. I stop reading as much, or I read a page or two and stop. That's a big red flag for me. Isolation often follows, and I reach out to a friend who helps keep me connected. Story 174. Anxiety ramps up. I cannot sleep well or for very long. I talk excessively. I know it is annoying, but I cannot stop myself. I am overly sensitive and irritated about everything. I have no patience, get easily frustrated, and find nothing interesting. I have no energy or motivation. I feel like a burden, inadequate and unlikable, and that everyone secretly hates me. I feel depressed and have little appetite. Any negative encounter sends me into a week-long spiral of overanalyzing how I could have handled it better, causing regret, hopelessness, worry, and sadness. Story 175. You begin to question everything, your thoughts, your abilities, your emotions, your accomplishments. Everything feels up in the air. You actively avoid things you enjoy because you do not feel 100%. You wake up thinking something is wrong. You know the problems and the solutions, yet you feel helpless because there is so much minutiae. When your thoughts focus on all the small steps toward your goals, you shut down and make no progress. You let small things define you. What you do not have, connections you lost, opportunities you did not take, the grades you think you should have. You spend more time in front of the mirror than seems necessary because you fear people will not respect you as you are. You expect yourself to handle everything while leaving commitments and tasks unfinished. Small inconveniences destroy your calm. You construct timelines in your head for life, education, family, and career. You know you are meant for more and have a purpose, but you are troubled by the lack of progress toward what you truly want. You question whether interacting with others is worth the time because you have experienced betrayal and emotional distance, even though you know loneliness is harmful. You do not respond when people reach out because you feel it would distract from your main objective: work, school, fitness, searching for the next big thing, or simply trying to feel 100%. There is always something that pulls you away from being present with others. You think about money, and even if you are financially stable and can pay your rent, you deny yourself things you should have because, in your view, it saves money. You intentionally withhold food and sleep to be productive, yet nothing gets done. Days feel shorter, sunlight seems gloomier, and you feel the day is wasted if you have not done anything by 11 in the morning. You spend valuable time aimlessly browsing the same sites when you know there are more important tasks to complete. There is a lot to carry. Story 176. I find myself planning trips or fantasizing about travel as a form of escapism. Story 177. I was diagnosed with agoraphobia a few years ago. Sometimes I suddenly feel uneasy about leaving the house and feel like every little thing could kill me. Story 178. There is a sense of doom when I first wake up, before I have realized where I am and what day it is. This can be the result of nightmares from the night before or because my outlook is colored by how I feel. I notice myself walking more slowly despite not intending to, and even elderly people pass me because they are faster. I jump at small noises or sudden movements because I am on high alert and very anxious. Everything feels like a threat. Cannot sleep. No matter how hard I try, I struggle to fall asleep, and if I do, my sleep is restless. I wake feeling that I need a few more hours. I have nightmares most nights or recurring bad dreams. Nothing terrifying happens in the dreams. Instead, they repeat scenarios of pressure, isolation, and external judgment with no escape. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.